In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read ancient tomes. The order Abracast. We are the brave and bold.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Stigmata Studios presents the Jin Jihad. The Jin Jihad kicks your face with myths, mysteries, epic battles, suicide bombers, quirky characters, and divine power armor. In this epic graphic novel, the warrior archangels descend on a city in chaos. It's all-out war. The non-standard assembly battles an ancient terrorist organization and their ultimate weapon, a corrupted, magically enhanced, unstoppable monster, the Jinn. This graphic novel is a wild ride. It's one part distant Arab myth, one part Old Testament angelic vengeance, and one part unique heroic tough guys. Available on Amazon. Get more info on the Jin Jihad and other titles at stigmatastudios.com.
This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My rifle is my best friend. It is my life. I must master it as I must master my life. Without me, my rifle is useless. Without my rifle, I am useless. I must fire my rifle true. I must shoot straighter than the enemy who is trying to kill me. I must shoot him before he shoots me. I will. My rifle and I have love, knowing that what counts in war is not the rounds we fire, the noise of our burst, nor the smoke we make. We know that it is the hits that count. We will hit. My rifle is human, even as I, because it is my life. Thus, I will learn it as a brother. I will learn its weaknesses and its strengths, its parts, its accessories, its sights, its barrel. I will keep my rifle clean and ready, even as I am clean and ready. We will become part of each other. We will. Before God, I swear this creed. My rifle and myself are the defenders of my country. We are the masters of our enemy, and we are the saviors of my life. So be it, until there is no enemy but peace. Amen. I'm a spring-loaded mother with an evil slant. I am the boogeyman. Bring it back again with the chop on my hand. I am the real thing. With the pain I bring.
The Abracast. Occult. History.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Conspiracy. Violence.
All right, well, thank you for joining me this rainy evening. I'm John Towers, and this is Abracast. A lot of things happened this week. Chuck Berry fucking died, so I'll pour some out for my dead homie. Also, American TV host and spy and assassin Chuck Barris died. Someone rang the gong on him finally. So I pour some out for that dead homie as well. I almost did this episode as a Chuck Barris episode, going back to his book, A Dangerous Mind. I think that's what it's called. Dangerous Mind, something like that. They turn George Clooney turned it into a movie. But I realized that, like, whenever some interesting, weird, or paranoid schizophrenic passes away, I can't devote a whole show to them. So I just thought I'd give them a shout out. Maybe we'll do a show later sometime. I got some original artwork coming out over as cover art for The Wicked Library over there at The Wicked Library. Or A Night Story, one of the two. I can't remember. I should actually do the art. I know the deadline's coming up. I haven't even opened the fucking thing for it. I have a prose short story coming out. It's my first published prose story. I'm pretty excited about that. Got to check that off the bucket list, suckers. In a book called Fiends of the Flesh from Burning Ball Publishing. I know they're putting the final touches on that, so I'll let you guys know what's going on. Also rolling along on my comics. Got the art for the first new thing done, and I'm working on the art for the second new thing. And I'm going to start doing all the computer shit for the first one in a minute. I have yet to name these things, so I just thing 1 and thing 2 for right now. We'll figure it out as it goes. All right, bros. We live in a wild world nowadays. We live in a world where you could just be walking down the street in England and some 8th century cave-dwelling savage could just run you down. I'm talking, of course, about Kali Musad. And the same thing happened in Antwerp this week, on Thursday, I think. The news called him a Frenchman runs car into a crowd in Antwerp. But at the end of the news piece, they mentioned that his name was Mohammed. So, I mean, he might have been born in France, but so these are just two simple things that happened like within super recent memory. So I thought that I would talk a little bit today about the United States' weird relationship with radical Islam. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like in the 80s, they took some terrorists and then they flew planes into a building. Like it had nothing. Like how much of a past could we have had? Because we have had. And there's a reason I opened the show today with the Marine Corps Rifleman's Creed. When you listen to the Marine Corps hymn, they say from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Well, I'm going to decode this for you today and explain why the Tripoli is mentioned in the Marine Corps hymn. A few years ago, 2009, maybe 2010 or something, Obama's up there saying, how we've always had the founding fathers and the foundation of this country is always meshed with Islam. And most people are like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Well, today I'm going to tell you it does make sense. So I need you to pour yourself a gin jihad. Stir it up nice and good with your scimitar, or better yet, have your white slave do it. Stir it up for you. Because I'm here to tell you that the U.S. has had issues with Islam since its founding, literally. So today we're going to talk about the Barbary Wars, Barbary War 1 and Barbary War 2. This time it's personal. We're gonna get into that this stuff right away. Whoa, it always does that. I gotta fucking work on that. It's funny, I just wanted to stop. I was going through the Amazon reviews of the Ages yesterday. There's not a whole lot of them, but what somebody said, they gave me 3 stars. I don't know. I guess that's all right. They gave me 3 stars. They said that they liked the book. I think they were kind of confused, but he said, if you want to read Genesis from the loser's perspective, this might be the book for you. I thought that was really funny. I spent a lot of time I spent a lot of time and research on that book. So, okay, so in this corner, we're talking about Barbary. We're going to talk a little bit about what led up to the First Barbary War. So from the 15th century onward, these Barbary pirates, they're called the Barbary Corsairs. Ooh. Well, they terrorized their oceans, like they're in the Mediterranean. They terrorized ships. They enslaved captives. They waged jihad for over 200 years, and they operated out of these Barbary states in northern Africa. I believe there are 4 of these states, like Algiers, Tripoli, of course, which is now Libya, and another one. I think 3 out of the 4 of them were actually part of the Ottoman Empire, which was in the middle of imploding or maybe not imploding. It was in the middle of collapsing after their crippling defeat in Vienna in 1683. I wrote a book about it. I wrote a book about Vienna in 1683, so I think it's interesting. They start as privateers, which basically means that the government gives them permission to act like belligerent assholes on the sea as long as they give up a certain percentage of their booty. Not in like the prison way. I mean like their spoils or their plunder or whatever. Eventually, they started slave trading. They'd sell the women to harems or marry them off to people, or hold them for ransom. And then the men were either enslaved, sold, or held for ransom. Now, for the guys, there was kind of a way out of this. They called it take to the turban or to turn Turk. And that's basically is when you convert. A lot of these guys decided they'd probably never see home again and adopted the Islamic religion and their customs to kind of have a way to stay alive, and they would become part of these corsairs. And it actually was super effective for them because the corsairs had to stay in the Mediterranean. Their boats weren't built or designed to handle the rough northern seas until they got enough of these fucking European converts who start teaching them better ways to build their boats and stuff, which gave them the power. Literally, it gave them the mechanical ability to sail in these harsher seas, and within 20 years they were able to like go all the way up. And besides just attacking boats, they would attack shorelines. They would come ashore, raid villages, and take captives and enslave them or sell them off. The advanced shipbuilding techniques. They moved up into Europe and they started raiding ships and shores and enslaving and ransoming their people. Eventually, England and the other quote world powers at the time unquote would just pay them with tributes. So every year they would give them a couple $1 million or whatever and say, "Hey, leave our fucking shit alone." And it worked sometimes, and sometimes it didn't work, but it was enough of a thing. Imagine, dude, getting paid just to not fuck shit up. So we're talking about England, of course, France, Spain, and Sweden, and this worked fine for us Americans. Well, until 1776, when we were like, we're not with these guys anymore. We're not with these fucking British guys anymore. Which sent a signal to the world that it was okay to fucking steal our shit. In which they did. They promptly attacked and stole, I think, 3 or 4 of our vessels, something called the Betsy, the Dolphin, and the Marina. And later, we fucked something up later. I will talk about it. It was the Philadelphia, but the 3 ships they jacked right off the bat, and they took our people and all the goods, and enslaved them and we're holding them slaves. And Washington, President Washington at the time, I guess, or General, I'm not sure if he was president yet. Like I said, it was literally the second we declared independence. Was like, yo, whoa. And he sent Adams and Jefferson, who kind of was like a comedy team. That's the way that I imagine them. It's like the Odd Couple. They both went to England, and they sat down with the Tripolitan ambassador. And we're gonna get right back to that in a minute. All right, so Adams and Jefferson, the comedy team of Adams and Jefferson, were sitting down with, not that these guys were jokes. Neither one of these fuckers were jokes. I'm just saying the way their relationship was. I imagine like the emotions ran deep, but I think that I could probably write a pretty funny story about this. Anyhow. They're sitting down with this Tripolitan ambassador, and they're like, yo, man, we didn't do anything to you guys. We have nothing to do with you. Like, why are you attacking us? Like, it doesn't make any sense. We didn't offend you in any way. We're in the middle of, we're fighting this war. And, I'm going to read, this is what they say about the ambassador's answer. The ambassador answered us that it was founded on the laws of their prophet Muhammad, that it was written in their Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise. And Jefferson was like, hold on, wait a minute. What? Like, your prophet said that it's cool to just enslave and kill us for no reason, and if you die, you go to heaven? And they're like, that's right, bro. That's what it says. So, Jefferson very swiftly gets a Quran. He's like, I gotta read this shit. And a few years ago, in 2007, Keith Ellis was sworn. He's a congressman, I think, or senator. I think he was a congressman. I think he's probably still in office. He was sworn in on Jefferson's Bible, and they made a big to-do about it. They're like, look how progressive Jefferson was. He studied the Quran. I'm sure that had a lot to do with the decisions and stuff that he made in his life. He probably seeked out the wisdom of the Quran. You can see that is the case. He actually read the Quran because he was like, this shit is cray-cray. Okay, so the comedy team of Adams and Jefferson came out of this meeting with they had the same idea. They understood it for sure, but they came out with two totally different points of view. Adams said, we can't fight these fucking guys. We'll be fighting them forever. You can see the wisdom in what he had to say. He also said America had no stomach for the long war. And you could see the wisdom in what Adams had to say. Thomas Jefferson was like, yo, I read this Quran, and I understand that the price will just go up, and the attacks will just keep coming again and again. We need to fight them. And so they both, I guess, probably told Washington what they had to think. And Washington writes of his time. So this was after... okay, I'm going to correct myself. This was after the war because the founding fathers were totally against a standing army. Like, they were like, we don't want that shit at all. We don't want a standing army. And what had happened after the war, they decommissioned their navy. So we didn't have a navy to speak of. And we know this because Washington actually writes about this conundrum of these Barbary corsairs. He's like, basically, I'm not going to read the thing. Basically, he was like, if I had a way to get over there, boy howdy, I would get over there and whip all their asses. But basically, they didn't have a way to get out of there. So Washington begins to make payments to these guys. During his 8 years, I think it went from 16 to 20% of our economy went to paying off these fucking assholes to leave our shit alone. But he kind of split it both ways, because he started paying them, but he also commissioned the rebuilding of the Navy. Once he gets out of office, Adam becomes president, and people often cite Adams as the father of the Navy because for some reason he gets the credit for rebuilding the Navy. But so he gets the Navy rebuilt up, but he doesn't go after the pirates. He keeps paying them because, like he said, he didn't want to get into a fight that was going to keep us fighting forever. Okay, I think he was only in office for 4 years, that guy. And I don't want to tie it to this. I don't know if that's the thing at all, if it had anything to do with this. But Jefferson takes office. And in this corner, Thomas Jefferson, swinging his dick long. He's the third president of the United States. I said before that he read the Quran and he understands his enemy. Because of the rebuilding of the Navy, he knows what's up. Back in the day, we had, during the during the Revolutionary War, we had a couple battalions of Marines. And at the time, they were like, the idea of the Marines were, they would have God, how do I explain this? They were like, we need military aspects actually on these boats, right? I guess the sailors might not have been so disciplined, so they're like, we need, because you hear about like mutinies, and during the mutinies, the actual Marines that were actually stationed on the boat put the mutinies down. So I guess they were like hall pass monitors, I guess, for some of these sailors or whatever. But like the idea is they also were supposed to know how to operate on these boats, and they were also supposed to know soldiery, so they could get deployed in shoulder to shoulder with the army. So they were kind of like a Swiss Army knife, a little bit. So another thing that they did is they commissioned like a couple battalions of Marines to be built up. That's why I read the Rifleman's Creed at the beginning, the Marines Rifleman's Creed at the beginning of the episode. So like I said, Jefferson sits down. He knows what he's got to do. He's like, I'm gonna fucking stop. I'm gonna engage these guys. And what he does is he stops payments. He couldn't declare war. There was actually no function in our Constitution at the time for how we were to declare war. So he didn't declare war. He didn't have Congress's approval. But he didn't have Congress's approval. But he said if he stopped payment, then they're gonna be belligerent again, and I'll be able to act on them. And this is when those three boats got taken. I'm sorry. The crews get taken and enslaved. The ships were called the Betsy, the Dolphin, and the Maria. Yeah. So he stops payments. These ships get taken. And Tripoli, which is now Libya. It's funny because every time someone talks about this, whenever they say Tripoli, they always say, which is now Libya. So I'm just going to keep fucking doing that, I guess, for no stupid reason. They're the first foreign country to declare war on us after we were a country. It's funny because what they did is they actually went in front of like our embassy or whatever, and they tried to cut down our flagpole. And there was all kinds of shenanigans about it. Like they couldn't cut it down for some reason. Like they couldn't figure out how to cut it down, and they had to like wait till it was like nighttime and then just declare that it was cut down. And they had guys working on it all night long until it came down. Brian Kilmeade talks about this in his book called Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. which is where a lot of this stuff comes from. So, all right, so there are your two sides: the Tripoli pirates and Thomas Jefferson, and a bunch of and some Marines and a newly reconstituted Navy. You guys want to lay your bets down? Now is the time to do it. We're going to see how this shakes out. All right, so okay, so these group of corsairs, pirates who are beholden to these 4 northern African states who are part of the Ottoman Empire, are acting like pirates and jerks in our oceans, and they're stealing our ships and enslaving our people. On one side, Thomas Jefferson, who has the knowledge and wisdom of the knowledge and wisdom of the teachings and traditions of Mohammed fresh in his brain, a handful of Marines and a newly constituted Navy on one side. So, the first thing that they do is he sends the Navy to blockade those Barbary states, and it didn't work so good. In 1801 and 1802, there were few small sea battles, but the thing is that this was the Corsairs' home turf, so they knew all the ins and outs, which is actually the next, in 1803, is the next step. It really where we fuck ourselves. So the blockade didn't really work fantastically. So in 1803, our ship, the Philadelphia, ran into this reef. It ran into like this unmarked reef where apparently all the pirates knew where this thing was, just under the surface. We didn't know where it was, and we beached like our flyest ship. We wound up some of them abandoned it, and it was just sitting there, and the Barbary pirates were waiting for the conditions to be right, because they were going to take it and they were going to turn it into the flagship of like their fleet. They're like, this thing is the sweetest. This is like the classic Camaro of a bunch of people just turned me off. The Philadelphia is like the classic. It was like the best, and our guys on our side knew what they were going to do with it. So this was like the first Black Ops mission in U.S. history. A small contingent of troops rowed up to the Philadelphia, who was beached on this reef, or reefed on this reef, and they fucking burned it down, limiting access and denying the plan of turning this Philadelphia warship into a pirate asset. They fucking burned it. They burned that shit down. So they resumed. They went ahead and did another blockade, and somebody was like, "Yo, these blockades aren't working, dog." And they did a little bit of like research in the culture and the current political climate, and they had discovered that this current Pasha of Tripoli, which is now Libya, killed his older brother and exiled his middle brother into Egypt. And he did this so he could be like the boss. So we get this idea where we're gonna only a Marine can think of this. They got this idea where they're like, "Yo, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna sail to Egypt. We're gonna land. We're gonna find this middle brother, and we're gonna install him as this new Pasha. We're gonna make sure he's cool with us and install him as this new Pasha of Tripoli, which is now Libya." And somewhere someone was like, yes, this sounds like a great idea. So without a map, without contacts on the ground, without like even talking to this guy, like he might have got there and they would have been like, dude, America sucks. The U.S. sucks. We're not. No, man, I'm going to. Yeah, install me, fool, and I'm going to still keep taxing your ass. But so they did this. So 10 Marines, just 10. You ever seen like, Marine, there's no such thing as an ex-Marine, and Marines that are no longer in service are very proud of their service. And have you ever seen like these bumper stickers where they're like, when you absolutely positively need it destroyed overnight, call the Marines. Well, this is what these 10 fucking Marines did. They landed in Alexandria, Egypt. They amassed a force of 500 mercenaries, no navigation, no maps, no nothing. The plan was to find this brother and reinstall him. So in 1805, they rolled up on the city of Derna, and instead of doing what they were supposed to, which was, quietly infiltrate the city, find the brother, whatever. Instead, they fucking rolled up and they just took control of the city. They fucking destroyed everything. They took control of the city. And in the end, they were like, the people that were living there was like, okay, what do you want? Like, are we part of America now? And the Marines were like, no, just do whatever you want, bro. Like, just whatever. Like, no, we don't want anything. So they got this guy. And as soon as they grabbed this dude, the Pasha of Tripoli, basically he gave up and he sued for peace. He wound up suing for peace. I think that we wound up paying for the captives that they had, but we would no longer pay anything going forward. We totally fucking rolled up and decimated. We outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and just outgutted these fucking corsairs. And imagine all the world's superpowers up to that time, like Britain and France and Spain and Sweden, and they're like, we're just paying, dude. We're just paying because how are you gonna fight these guys? And then America's like, hey man, we're like 15 years old. We're going to go ahead and solve this problem. It's so American. I fucking love it because it's such a fucking American thing to do. I fucking love it. Well, they wound up, the guy who was in charge of the Marines, I think, was this guy named O'Banion, and he wound up getting this Mameluke sword, which is the weird kind of sword that Marines today, they use the tradition still today to carry it when they're in their dress blues. They all get one of these swords and they carry them around. I just think like Britain and France and Spain, they're like, what do these guys think that they could do to these pirates that we haven't already tried to do? And America's like, yo, hold my beer, I'll be right back. So after warring and suffering with these Barbary pirates for so long, somebody here in America started printing Korans for Americans so they could read them. And they're like, we've been in battle with these guys we've been at war and been at battle with these guys for so long. The people should be able to understand, where the problem is, what the problem's coming from, So they print these Korans, and in the forewords of these Korans, it's really hilarious. Because it's like, it's definitely not the Keith Ellison theory that, we're absorbing the wisdom of Muhammad and the angel Gabriel, and Allah, because of the, hold on. Because the foreword to these Korans that were being printed up, they're basically like, well, read this, and try to understand what these pirates are going through, but you're not going to believe these fools. It's basically what it was. Basically, what the foreword of these books were saying. It's like, this shit is crazy, and you couldn't even make this stuff up. That's what the foreword of this book was saying. So, for a long time, well, for a little bit, we were cool. Like when you beat up when you get in a fight with someone, you beat them up and they go away for a little while, but you're like, that shit's not over. Like, they're going to come back. That's what happened to England in the War of 1812. They fucking came back. So we were busy with the War of 1812, and as soon as that shit kicked off, Algeria decided to war with the U.S. So they were like, all right, all these boats, they're all fair game again. And in 1815, after we were done with the British in the War of 1812, Madison, who was in office, was like, no, this shit's not right with these fucking corsairs. And we now had quite a beefy navy because, you know, really the super strength of the British Navy, or the British military might, was their navy. So we built up a navy to joust with them, to fight with them. So our navy was pretty fly, and it was a lot flyer than a bunch of fucking rickety old ships sailing around or out there in Morocco. So Madison, who had a beefy navy at his disposal, sent the navy over there, and they whipped them up pretty good. And the end of that, you know, in the First Barbary War, we still paid them for the captives that they had, but we said we're not going to pay anymore. And this time around, we fucking made them pay reparations, which I think is hilarious. Yeah, so they had to they paid some reparations for their shit. So just to put a number on this, talk about the amount of people that were enslaved by these Barbary pirates. There actually is a number. I don't know where this number came from, but I imagine, you know, record keeping being what it is, I imagine these guys had an inventory of the slaves that they sold or whatever. But between 1520 and 1780, the Barbary pirates had 1 million European slaves. So that's a lot of fucking slaves. And what the men that were enslaved were put into a lot of different positions. One of the things that they would do is when the sails were down, they would row. And they would just, there's writings and accounts of them just rowing until they died, you know, rowing for like 3 days straight. And if they passed out, or if they stopped rowing for whatever reason, this is very interesting. These corsairs, these Muslim Barbary pirates, would whip these guys with bull dicks. Now, I have a theory about this. It has something to do with sexual repression, but I don't know where, like, someone sees a bull dick and they're like, oh man, I could really beat a guy's ass with that thing. Oh, Jesus fuck. All right. So that's been the Barbary War 1 and 2. This time it's personal. I'm John Towers. This is Abercast. Thank you guys for listening. I love that we're getting a little bit of an audience. If you guys want to find me on Twitter, it's JONNYAXX, or Stigmata Studios on Twitter, Stigmata Studios on Facebook, Stigmata Studios on Instagram. The Facebook, I have a Facebook group page that I'm trying to do stuff with. It's the Abercast. Pretty easy to find. I see a few of you folks peeking in there every now and again. And the newsletter. There's a link to the newsletter in the show notes. I don't do as much with that as I should, but every once in a while I'll shoot out an email to you guys, let you guys know what's up, offer you guys some free shizzle. So check that out. And if you're wondering what to listen to next on this rainy evening, go to society-13.com and find I've got a bunch of cohorts I roll with. We got all kinds of fun podcasts over there, so check that out. And send those guys some love. And okay, well, I'm really starting to hiccup my way to this ending. I feel like, you know, when your bicycle chain falls off the fucking thing, that's what I feel like. So look, if you ever just want to have like just a fun, you know, to get yourself through a day, just think of like Thomas Jefferson being like, no, now I'm gonna go whip your ass, you know, and not with a bull dick, like with my fucking Navy and some fucking Marines. Anyhow, the Marines, this is where the Shores of Tripoli thing came from, because they actually went to Tripoli. All right, I think I've said enough. I don't know what's on deck for next week, but since we just kind of did a history thing, maybe we'll do like a paranormal thing or an occult thing. I don't know. We'll do something. So I'll be here next week, guys. Thanks. Bye. See ya. Peace out, fools.
Stigmata Studios presents The Scorpion Strikes. In this comic book, a terrorist called the Scorpion is transported to a secret CIA prison. He quickly turns the tables on the guards and administrators and releases the prisoners. A well-armed anarchist called Constituent Zero assembles a team and fights to take the prison back. This story is a dark political action thriller. The Scorpion's actions set the stage perfectly for the Jin Jihad. Available on Indie Planet. Get more info on The Scorpion Strikes, the Jin Jihad, and other titles at stigmatastudios.com. Stigmata Studios presents The Test of the Scorpion. In this comic book, while the Jin Jihad is raging on one side of the city, the terrorist called the Scorpion sets a secondary attack in motion as he obtains a small tactical nuclear bomb. A mysterious, ever-living warrior called Cyrus the Dead Guy steps forward to test the faith of the Scorpion and his lunatic followers. This is an action-adventure story. It's a bit of swashbuckler that wraps up the Jihad stories. Available on Indie Planet. Get more info on The Scorpion Strikes, the Jin Jihad, The Test of the Scorpion, and other titles at stigmatastudios.com.
What do you guys think of that Ghost in the Machine? Or Ghost in the Shell? I'm torn. Very torn. It comes out on my birthday, though. day. Mama look a boo boo day.